of protection. In 1982, when Iraq was threatening to build a nuclear reactor, Lubavitcher Rebbe started a campaign that went this way, that each Jewish child and each Jewish person who would help write a letter in a Sefer Torah would find protection for themselves and through themselves for the rest of the world. And people thought this to be silly. They thought that this was something mystical that they couldn't fathom. The Rebbe associated this with the words of the angel Michael, in the book of Daniel. The Michael tells Daniel that all of those who are written in this book shall be saved. The book refers to the Torah. And all those who have a letter in the Torah will be saved. And therefore the protection of the world requires that we write Torahs. And every Jewish soul should have a letter in the Torah that will protect them and protect the whole world. Right before Shavuos, the Rebbe issued a demand that he wanted to know before sundown how many letters had been sold in the Sefer Torah. And we didn't understand what was going on. And being shy and being introverted, I wasn't interested that much into going out and asking people to buy letters. But the Rebbe made this a personal request, so I went out and knocked on some doors. And I remember the reaction of a particular woman. She was in her bikini. And she looked at me with a long beard and she said, "I just gave in the office." And I told her, "Not for what I'm asking for. I want you to buy a letter in the Torah for $1. Well, they did. And they went around for a few hours and it was almost sundown and I had to walk home. I locked up my car and I walked home. The next morning we found out that Israel had launched an attack upon the nuclear reactor that Saddam Hussein was planning to develop within it nuclear weapons and was going to attack Israel with it. And of course, the entire reactor was flattened. Well, the world huffed and puffed, but silently they all were happy that the Jewish state had destroyed Saddam's reactor. Yes, Saddam, they didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. There's a reason why. Had the world not done anything, had Israel not done anything, the world would be faced with Saddam Hussein with a nuclear weapon, or weapons. He had nerve gas, and he proceeded to send those gases and all the other weapons of mass destruction across the border into Syria. And that's been pretty well documented. But even if he didn't have any biological weapons, any chemical weapons, he certainly was trying to get nuclear weapons. Iran is also trying to get nuclear weapons. And this country doesn't care if Iran uses them against Israel. They can say what they want, but allowing Iran to get nuclear weapons is an existential threat to Israel. It's not an existential threat to the United States because of the deterrent of the United States, because the United States has massive anti-missile programs and so on. but in 6 to 7 minutes, Iran could send a weapon, a nuclear weapon against Israel. And within about 15 minutes, there would be no life or lives in Israel. These are very, very serious threats. But the Torah gives us the antidote. Of course, you have to fight them. But how do you know that the fight is going to be successful? So you have to have spiritual weaponry. What is the spiritual weaponry? A letter in the Torah. Putting on tefillin. Keeping kosher. Going to mikveh. These are some of the things that every traditional Jew knows about. But most secular Jews are so alienated that they don't believe that these things have an effect. But let me tell you that when these threats were happening, these threats were very serious. And there was one man, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who told us beforehand that through the commandments we would have the deterrence to make the military activity successful. Before the 1967 war, the Rebbe started his Mitzva campaigns. In the middle of the campaign, in the middle of the war, the Rebbe started the Mitzva of Tefillin, that we should put on Tefillin with as many Jewish people as possible, and in the merit of Tefillin we would win the war. The Rebbe predicted total victory, and his words were prophetic, and that's a matter of record. So the answer to the skeptics is, try it, see if it helps, and if it helps, do more mitzvahs. You know, there was a fellow who came to the Ohel of the Rebbe a while ago, and the person was very secular, very wealthy man, and he came to the Rebbe's gravesite, and he just cried and cried and cried. And one of the rabbis did not understand why this man was crying. Didn't look like a religious man. So he told him the story that someone had directed him to go to the Rebbe's gravesite because he hadn't been blessed with having children. He had been married for 10, 15 years, and there were no children. And the doctors had given up hope. So he came into the grave and he said, Rebbe, I don't believe in you. And even if I were to have a child, I still won't believe in you. The only way I would believe in you is if this year my wife would give birth to twins. And sure enough, that year, his wife conceived and gave birth to twins. And from that time on, he comes to visit the Rebbe's grave, and he cries over the fact that it took a miracle for him to begin to believe as a Jew. The problem that we have is we haven't seen holiness. We haven't felt holiness in a long time. And unless we see miracles, we don't have the capacity for belief. So try it. Buy a letter in the Torah. Put on tefillin. For women, light candles on Friday night at the proper time. See if your life will change. I believe it will. And if it does, do another mitzvah.